But it is like gonna cost money. Yeah, I can't. Oh yeah.
It's true.
Hello everyone, this is your intro to GitHub workshop, Git and GitHub. My name is Arthur Negi and I am a member of ACM and a member of the organizing team of RowdyHacks. So, and this is Josh, this is our technical officer of ACM, also the president of ACM. So, yeah, Git and GitHub. First thing, Git versus GitHub. Git and GitHub are not the same. A lot of people initially they get confused between Git and GitHub. They think it's the same thing, but actually it's not. So what's Git? Git is actually just a piece of software that you can install on your computer. If you have a Mac or a Linux system, it comes installed. If you have a Windows, you have to install it. Whereas GitHub is more like GitHub is a web application. It's a service on the internet where you can host your GitHub, your Git projects. Basically, any project that you're working on, you can create repositories. Basically, that is what Git is used for. Git is used for creating repositories of projects, and then you can host those projects onto GitHub. So if you would like to collaborate on projects, then GitHub is the place where you do that. And Git, what is Git? Git is essentially a version control system. Now, what is a version control system? So it's a way in which we can track tool changes. I mean, the name tells it all, version control system. Let's say you're working on a project and you want to take snapshots of like different stages of the project. Let's say you create a file, you push some code, and then you can create a snapshot of the project at that time. That's basically saving the project that they're in then, and then you can make more changes, save it again, make more changes, save it again. And then what you can do is after a while, if you want to, you can come back and look at those changes. Look at how your project used to look like maybe like 5 or 7 saves ago. That is what a version control system is, and that is what GitHub is. And what is GitHub? So whatever that you do with Git is like you create repositories with all of these changes and everything, you host them on GitHub. So GitHub is a website to host those repositories online and collaborate, clone other repositories. So if any one of you is following here, first thing I would say, if you have Git already installed, you might want to run these two commands. They're essentially just gonna set you as the global user so that whenever you make changes, if you commit, you push to GitHub, so GitHub knows that it's you who's actually doing it. And I'm gonna be posting these slides in the Discord later, so if y'all miss anything, don't worry, everything's gonna be posted in the Discord. Okay, so first introduction to some basic commands. So we've got git init. Git init is used to initialize a repository. Let's say you're working in a project and which is not a repository. So you can use the git init command to tell Git that you want to create, you want to make that folder a repository, a Git repository, basically, so that Git can start tracking changes in that folder. Then we have the git clone command, which is used to essentially any repository that is hosted on any of the on GitHub, essentially. You can clone that. Cloning is basically making a local copy of that repository, online repository, onto your local machine. So you would use git clone command for that. And then there's a git add, which is used to add changes, git commit, which is used to save those changes, git status to get the status of the changes, and git log to get like a log of those changes. And we will be getting into these commands later when I show you like how to do it practically, and then I will be showing you using these commands. So first thing, there's like two ways of creating a repository. The first way is that you create a repo on GitHub and then you clone it or clone any repo that is available on GitHub. And then the second way is you initialize the repo locally and then host it on GitHub. These are the two main ways. And I can go ahead and show you how to do the first way. It's like you create a repo on GitHub and then clone it. So this is my GitHub. If anyone doesn't know, you just go to github.com, create an account, and then basically you get this. It's free, open source. So what you can do is this is going to be your profile. You can go to repository or right here. It'll be like create new. That is, you create a new repository. You can name it anything. You can name it as you can name it anything. It's going to be on your profile. And then you can choose to make it public or private. Public, anyone on GitHub can see it. Private is just you that have access to it, so no one else can see it. And then we're gonna leave it public for now and then create a repository. So it creates a repo for you, right? So now what you have to do is we have created a test repo here. What I'm gonna do is copy this link right here. This is what we use to clone to the repo. We copy this and we come back to the terminal. So wherever you want your repo to exist locally, you move into that directory, and then we have the git clone command that I talked about earlier. So we just do git clone, and then the URL that we copied from here. So there's two ways of doing it. We've got the HTTPS method and the SSH method. SSH method, you need SSH keys for that, which is basically a way of authenticating, like so that GitHub knows that it's you who's actually doing all the things. And it's a different topic. I will leave the links for that, how to generate SSH keys, but it's a long thing and we don't have enough time for that. But yeah, so once you have this link, you can just pretty much do git clone and then paste the link here. So it's going to clone into that repo and it tells me that I've cloned into the repo for now. So if I do nonetheless, it's going to show me like, hey, test repo is here. If I move into test repo, So there's nothing over here right now. But if you look at the hidden files, there's gonna be a .git folder. This is basically the folder that's the directory that's tracking all the changes that's happening. And let's say we make yes, sorry.
I don't.
Do you want the same?
I open that folder in my VS Code, and let's say I create a new file. I name this hello.py, and in here I just do print hello. So if you look at it, so this is highlighted in a different color. That means Git knows that there's changes made to this file. It says here new, that means updated. So that means it knows that it's updated. So if we go back to some of these commands, just like the git add commit status and log commands that I'm going to talk about now. So first command that I want to show is git status. What git status does is basically gives you the status of the files in that directory, the current working directory. So right now, it tells me that these are untracked files, hello.py. Git knows that there's been changes made to this file, but these are untracked for now. So what we do is git add, which adds those changes to the staging area. So we do git add, and then after add, we can, 90% of the cases, everyone does a period. Period means add everything, all the changes that are made right here. But you can also specify, if you don't want to add all the files, maybe you just want to add certain files, you can just name those files and Git will only track those. But if you just do a period, it's going to track, and now it says hey. So that means it's changed. So Git, if you do a Git status again, now it says that changes to be committed. So this says Git now knows, Git has tracked this file, that changes have been made, but these changes haven't been committed yet. So they're essentially not saved. So Git knows there's changes, but they're not saved. Now, the next would be to Git commit. Is to commit those changes. We do Git commit, we do a -m, and -m flag basically means to give a message. This is just a commit message that you can give to Git. It can be anything like added hello.py. This is for when, as I said, you can go back in time and look at different versions of the project that you saved. So this is for you. So when you want to come back in time, so that you can look, hey, okay, I made this change. When I said I'm adding hello.py, that's where I want to go. So this message, make it descriptive, make it so that you know what you're doing here. So now Git has committed those changes, but over here on GitHub, we don't have anything. Because whatever changes we have, they are right now, they're being committed locally. We haven't pushed anything to GitHub. Next step would be to push these changes to GitHub. We do git push, and the first time you push, it requires setup, but the first time you push, it's gonna ask you like, hey, where do you want to push it? So you can add the link to that GitHub that'll show you in the next thing. But for now, git push is gonna work if I just do git push. So it shows me that it pushed all these files, all the changes, which is just one file, to GitHub. If I go back to my GitHub and I do a refresh, here's the file. So it got pushed to GitHub. This is the first way of creating a repo on GitHub. Now I will show you the second way to create a repo. So this was the first way to create a repo on GitHub. We created it on GitHub and then found it locally. Second way would be we create a repo locally and then push it to GitHub. If I just copy. So now I'm gonna do is create a new folder. I'm just gonna call it test repo 2. And so this is test repo 2. Here, this is not a GitHub repo yet. Git repo at least. So if I do, what is it, ls.la, it's not going to show me that .git folder because it's not a repo yet. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I have a file here again. I'm going to call it, let's say, index.html. I have some content over here. So right now, nothing's happening. It's not being highlighted because it's not tracking it. What we have to do for Git to track it is use this command, git init, which is basically initialize a new Git repo. If we do a git init here, it says initialize empty Git repository at this folder. Now it tracks it because now Git knows that this is a Git repo. Now we have the .git folder here. Now, okay, so all of these changes, again, the same steps, git add, period, so we add this file, we do a git commit, we give a message, added index.html. So everything is the same, but now we try to do a git push, it will give us an error. Because Git doesn't know where to push these changes, because we haven't linked this to a repo on GitHub yet. So what we do is we can go to GitHub and create an empty repo again. Let test repo 2. Right here. GitHub actually, when you do this, GitHub actually does give you all the commands that you have to do according to your situation. So it says here, push to an existing repository from the command line. So create new repo. Like this is what we did earlier, we pushed, but this is what we're gonna do right now, is because we have a repo already, and we just wanna push it to GitHub. So we're gonna copy, we're gonna copy this. We're gonna come back, and then we have the command git remote origin. So this is basically just telling Git, like, where do we want to push these changes to? So remote just means there's a repo that exists somewhere on the remote repository, which is GitHub, and then we add the origin, and origin is what we copy the link from there, the URL. We paste it here, we do it. So now GitHub knows. Now Git knows that where to push these changes. Now if we do a git push, again, this is the error that I was talking about last time, that we have to set the upstream. So Git knows like where to push those changes, but it doesn't know what branch to push those changes to. I'll get into branches later, but for now, we have Git also, it's smart. It gives us the command that we have to do. We just do git push, and we do origin name. So that's essentially just telling Git, hey, take these changes, push it to GitHub, and push it to the main branch. Main, by default, main or master is the default branch on GitHub. And so just so that you don't have to write this whole thing again and again, we can just do a -u here, which is git push -u origin main, which is essentially just like, okay, setting the upstream. So by default, just push to the main branch. So now it pushes to GitHub. Now if we come back here, we do a refresh, and we have the index.html file here. So these were the two ways in which we can create repositories and push changes to GitHub. And so what's remote? I already went over this. It's a repository or location on the cloud. In this case, on GitHub. So, undoing changes in Git. So when we have to go back in time, that's like let's say you're working on a project and you wanna go back in time. So how do you do that? That's what Git is used for, right? Version control system, that's what it is. So these are the commands that you use to go back. So we've got the git reset command. You can give the file names, git reset file. So it only reverts the changes in one particular file. And then we can do git revert, and then we can give it a hash, which is if we do a git log. So we can see this is one commit that we did, and this is actually the message that we gave along with the commit. It says added index.html, and this is the hash of that commit. So what we can do is use this hash to go back to that version. So if you just do git revert and then paste this hash, it's going to be like removes file from creates new commit that undoes changes introduced in git commits in that commit. So whatever changes we made in this commit, it's going to undo all of those changes. We just use git revert. This hash. Yeah. Now you see our the file that we created is gone now, because what essentially we did in that commit was create that file, and that's what we did. But if we revert those changes back using git, now that file is gone. So that's how the version control systems work, because let's say you have like 10 files and you want to go back where you had like maybe 8 files that you needed originally, you can go back and those 2 files will be removed without affecting any other thing. So what is branching? So Git branches in Git. So essentially what a branch is, that as I told you, like main or master is the default branch. So whenever you work on GitHub, main or master is the default branch. Any changes that you make, any code that you push is by default pushed to the main or master branch unless you create a new branch and push that branch specifically. So this is the master branch. If you're working with just one branch, then all your code and everything exists here. So you commit once, you commit twice, this is the third commit, this is the fourth commit. That's how it flows. But this is what happens with branch. So let's say this was our main branch. This is going to be our first commit, and we have the second commit, and then we have the third commit. Now what happens is, after the third commit, what a branch essentially is, you create a copy of the main code, the main branch, and it branches out, and whatever changes you make to this branch does not affect anything on the main branch. This is called a feature branch or a developmental branch. So the code in the master and the new feature branch will be exactly the same at the beginning right here when we create the new branch. And after that, any changes that we make to the feature branch, which is this one right here, that will not affect the main branch. You can switch between branches. This is kind of like a sandbox, per se. You can do anything in here. It's not going to affect main branch. This is useful when you're working in a, let's say, a project that involves multiple people. So you have the main branch that's in production. You want to push new code to GitHub, but you don't want your existing application to break. That's why your application is running on the main branch. So what you do is essentially make a new branch, make those changes or whatever to the new feature branch, and then when you're confident, like, okay, everything's working fine, if we push it to production, it's not gonna break anything. That's when you merge the feature branch to the main branch. As soon as you merge the feature branch to the main branch, your main branch is gonna look, it's gonna be like, it's gonna be a combination of both the whatever code that was on the main branch and the feature branch, but it's gonna be a working thing and what is it? So yeah, it's gonna be one branch basically merged together. And as soon as you're done with the feature branch, you can delete the feature branch. It's not useful. So branching. So far, does anyone have any questions? I can show you how to get branches in GitHub. So right now, if you just do git branch, it's gonna show me that I am on the main branch that's been highlighted. To create a new branch, you can do git branch -b, and then I can name my new branch maybe feature branch. It's git checkout -b. So if I do git checkout -b feature branch, it's gonna create a new branch for me and then switch to that branch. If I do git branch now, it's gonna show me that there's two branches that exist. One is the main branch, the other is the feature branch. And right now we're on the feature branch. So any changes I make to this feature branch will not be reflected in the main branch. We're in the feature branch right now. Let's say I make a new, again, index.html file. And if I switch branches now, so how do you switch? You just do git checkout and the name of the branch that you want to switch to. So right now we're on the feature branch. We want to switch back to the main branch, so we just do git checkout to main. We go back to main. Got that? Changes the existing group branches. That's good. If I just do a git new yeah, so I created the new branch and made changes to that. If I go to GitHub, it's going to show me here that two branches exist now. If I go into that, that's the main branch, that's the feature branch. So I click on the main feature branch and show me that index.html file exists over here. But if I come back, if I switch to my main branch, it does not exist over here. you look at it, the index.html files that I created, it's not here because it's the main branch. We only make changes to the feature branch. So if we check out that, switch to that feature branch again, index.html file exists over here. So that was branching, and then we merge the feature branch. So to merge the feature branch onto the main branch, you make sure you are on the main branch. So right now we're on the feature branch, we just do git check main. We are on the main branch, and then we can just do git merge the feature branch. So now we are on the main branch, but as you can see, the index.html file was added over here because now we essentially merged the feature branch onto the main branch. And now we can push these changes to GitHub. Now if we come here and refresh, so this is the feature branch, this is the main branch, and index.html file exists over here, and it says here 2 minutes ago. So these changes were just pushed 2 minutes ago. So now that we don't need this branch anymore, we can just delete the branch over here from GitHub, or we can here and do git branch d, that stands for delete, and then feature branch. So that branch was now deleted, and that was it for branching. So these are some best practices. So you should try and commit regularly. Like your commit messages should be concise and small, and you should definitely use branches so that if you're working in a group project, you don't mess up each other's code. And you should commit frequently on single tasks. And the branch, these are some common practices, like the main branch is the main branch, and then for the feature branch, you can call them dev or task name or person dash name, just so that you know which branch is whose. Then I would just want to touch on this topic of git ignore. So what git ignore is essentially is, because whatever we're doing here, this is inside a Git repository. So basically Git is tracking everything. So what if we want Git to not track something? So that's when git ignore comes into use. What we can do is, let's say we have a .env file, which essentially is a file that has all your environment variables. Let's say we have an API key, which is something. And what we want is, we don't want this environment, these environment variables to be pushed to GitHub, because these are credentials, this is sensitive information. We don't want this to be pushed to GitHub. So in this case, what we do is we use a git ignore file. We just create in the root of your directory where that's your repo. Just create a file named .git ignore, and whatever file names that you put into this, those files and those folders will get ignored. So I can just put in .env, and I can save this. And if you see, it's not highlighted anymore. Because basically, if I just commit these changes to GitHub now, so getting more added, and I can push these changes to GitHub. So I can go back to GitHub, I can refresh. Yeah. So if I hit refresh, I can see that git ignore is here, but the .env file wasn't pushed to GitHub because GitHub ignored it. Git ignored it, essentially. So these are some important things. These are the GitHub documentation and the SSH keygen if anyone runs into that issue. To generate SSH keys, that's a one-time thing for one computer. If you have already done that, then you should be good. If you haven't worked with GitHub before or haven't generated SSH keys, then you can go to this link. It's gonna guide you through everything, how to create and add those keys to GitHub. And that was it. Thank you, guys. Yeah. So I will be posting these slides to Discord if anyone. And if anyone has any questions, I'm gonna be here for like another.